Do you mind if I call you Molly, or did you prefer
that?
Molly, where do we currently stand on the situation with legal highs then?
I think the government know they've got to do something, but it's not straightforward at all. As we all know, politicians are very nervous about doing anything that might look a bit liberal about drugs. But they do know that there are some very, very dangerous drugs out there. Young people are dying, young people are having their bladders removed, kidneys removed, all sorts of horrible things, simply because they take a legal high and they don't know what's in it. So there is a need for action, and so the government did say they were waiting for our report and they'd look at it and consider it. So that's where we are in terms of government thinking, I think.
And how long do you think it will be before they sort of make any actions on it, if any?
That is a very big question. I think something will happen. I think they will have to do something about these things. I hope, obviously, that they'll take some of our recommendations and do something about that, implement those. If they were to do that, we'd need a change in the law. So next session of Parliament, you know, you're talking a couple of years anyway, I would say, before you could get something implemented.
When you consider the sort of rapid rise of legal highs and how quickly they're continually developing, do you think that's fast enough?
No, I mean we need something very, very quickly, but it's quite difficult to, well, they'd have to draft a law, consult on a law. Do you know what I mean? It's very difficult for government to act quickly. They should have acted 2 years ago, that's the point, when we were having far less legal highs coming into the country, when far less people were using them. Now 1 in 10 of our young people have used a legal high. It's an awful lot of people. So they've left it too long, in my view. That's the problem. But starting from here, I think it'll take a couple of years.
And the current Misuse of Drugs Act is quite outdated, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, there's very little of it is even used today at all. And certainly a lot of those clauses, they're based on the UN Convention of 1961, which was formulated before people had any idea about what policies might work. We now know quite a lot about what works, and it is not reflected in the 1971 Misuse of Drugs Act at all.
One of the options for us is to legalise all drugs, one of the more drastic ones. The report did look at that, and if you look at instances in Portugal, that has proven to be quite successful. Is there any chance of us adopting that over here?
Oh, now you've used the word legalisation. It's really important to be clear that legalisation means legal supply of all drugs. Okay? What Portugal have done is to decriminalise use, which means that instead of sending users to prison, they send them for treatment in treatment centres. That's decriminalising use. That works. That is very successful in my view. They're doing much better in Portugal than in neighbouring Spain, which has not decriminalised use. So one of the recommendations in our report is that we should decriminalise use. It was picked up in the press and misinterpreted as meaning legalising heroin and cocaine. Of course, I don't support that. I really don't. I think we need to provide those drugs in a very, very intensive treatment setting while people are recovering. But you can't have those sold in chemists.
And then would these be made then by professional pharmacists and chemists?
You mean to be given to people who are real addicts? Yes, in Switzerland they do this, and again, very successfully. And that is legally grown, supplied heroin, you know, and they provide that heroin in the clinic. So they don't give people a prescription so they can go off and sell it. They provide it in the clinic, and people do get better.
And how do you think that will affect then, if those implementations do come in, the current situation regarding legal highs?
Well, of course, the sort of cocaine and heroin probably wouldn't affect the legal highs thing. I mean, for legal highs, I think what we need is a category D. At the moment we've got categories A to C, and they're all illegal. They're about illegal drugs. We need a category D for regulated drugs, and in my view we ought to put 1 or 2 of the least harmful legal highs in there, a sort of ecstasy substitute and a cannabis substitute, have them available in chemists with very clear labelling about the risks, the contents, the dosage, everything. And I think if we did that, that would possibly be the most useful thing we could do, and then have that legally, properly supplied.
And do you think that's the option that the UK government most likely to take?
I think it's a possibility. You know, that's all I can say. It's a possibility simply because it's logical. And at the end of the day, maybe government will be logical. But what we really need is a cross-party agreement on this, I think.
And then, if we look outside of legal highs then, how has the introduction of legal highs affected the use of other drugs then in this country?
Well, what we've found is that when, for example, ecstasy, they did a study of it and there was no MDMA in it at all on the streets, we found a drop in the use of ecstasy and a big increase in, I think it was mephedrone, legal high. So the two markets are very much related. As a legal high demand goes up, we've probably got a drop in one of those illegal drugs. Not because they're illegal, but because they are contaminated, because they're illegal. If you know what I mean, it's a sort of second level effect of illegality that leads people to say, my God, this is just too weird, I'll try a legal high. So that's what's going on. People are tossing up the two options, or many options.
When you consider then that somebody can simply go online onto a site via eBay and purchase these legal highs then, how hard is it for somebody to police these drugs?
Impossible. I mean, that's what the police have said to us. You know, we cannot deal with these things. So we've got to find another way. And therefore what we're saying is that the onus should be placed on the supplier to show that their drug is of minimal harm, limited harm. And then they can, you know, supply it on in the legal market. You know, the police will go on trying to have a go at some of the really serious stuff that we can't possibly have freely available at all. But it's a losing battle because these things are, as you know, purchased on the web, they're delivered to people's homes in little packages. I mean, thousands and tens and thousands are coming in every week, and the UK Borders Agency said we've got a great big warehouse full of these things. You know, they snuffle, they take them if they can, but of course lots and lots are getting through, and the police can't go around every single house with a young person in it to try and find one of these packages. It's just not possible.
I think that's great for that one then.